Goonhammer has partnered with Legalized Mischief to present you with Colin Ward's long-form painting videos. Like and subscribe, and follow Legalized Mischief and Goonhammer for more hobby tutorials.
Hey everyone, it's Colin with Legalized Mischief Productions. Thank you for joining me and welcome. And today we're going to be doing a new tutorial series for the Contemptor Cortus Dreadnought for Dark Angels, for Horus Heresy. And today what we're going to do is kind of lay some foundation, do some heraldry, and maybe get the first kind of round of black highlights or black armor painted as well. We'll see how long taping off everything for the heraldry takes. But given some thought, I want a really sharp, hard black for the armor. So it's going to be like a blue-gray black, kind of my standard method of painting black armor. But we might do a little tweak at the end. And I did the build video on this. That's already up on the Patreon. But it's just been primed since then. So main takeaways are just black armor, some heraldry. The heraldry is going to be really leaning, really leaning on black and red and white. That's really the triad for Dark Angels, but I really do want to emphasize that heraldic element in the army in general. So that'll expand into, yellow and blue and white and blue and those other colors getting incorporated into the scheme. So it's just a lot of flexibility. For this one, I think for the first time around, I want to keep it a little simple. So black, red, white, keep a simple palette, just go really strong with it. And so the first things first, we're going to obviously prime it black, and then I'm going to do a metallic. I'm going to airbrush metallics, just a first, just initial kind of airbrushing, getting all under here, around here, back here. And then I'll go back and paint the armor black with an airbrush. But that way, so why don't we just start doing that while I'm talking? So first up is going to be burnt iron from Vallejo metal color. This is a dark metallic. And the reason for this is so that I don't have to go back and just paint all of the base coat all the metallics by hand, which would take, it wouldn't take forever because it's not that big of a model, but it would take some time. By doing this with the airbrush first, yes, I'm going to overspray when I paint the armor, and it's not going to, I'm not going to lose my mind trying to avoid the metallics when I'm painting the armor, but because the armor is black, it's not really going to be that big of an inconvenience to overspray onto the metal bits. And it'll be really easy to just touch up with a brush after I paint the armor versus coming through after I've already kind of airbrushed and highlighted the armor and doing all of this metal with a brush, because there's a lot of metal on this model, which is good, which is what I want. It's supposed to be, I really want to emphasize that low tech element of it. It's not, I want a bunch of exposed elements and rough elements. That's going to be black. That was a mistake, but I'm not going to airbrush the gun barrels and stuff, but you can see everything under here is going to be metallic. That that little bit right there is going to be black, but I will trim back.
You fix that.
But even when I, like, you'll see, even when I overspray with the black, the touch up, I'll just come back with a brush and just touch it up real quick. It is not going to be a stretch to come back. I don't have to shade it. Like, it's just going to save a ton of time. I'm going to just do this whole thing metallic because I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to approach the Volkite culverin yet. So when in doubt, I'll just do it metallic and then fix it later if I want to. All right. That, as they say, is that. For the hoses and stuff behind the head, I'll come back and get those with a brush later. This is just to get kind of the main elements all base coated. And then I'll do just a single quick highlight, general highlight. But these are all going to get washed down. Maybe I'll skip the highlight. No, I have the brush out right now, whatever. These are all going to get washed down, gunked up, pigments, enamels. I mean, I really want to grime up this army. So not going to be shy when it comes to grinding up the metallics, especially. So the precision of this isn't hugely important right now, but we'll get some basic. So I'll overspray it, and then when I come back just with a brush, and I'll just hit the metallics again. It's a really, really easy correction to do, and it takes no time versus trying to repaint all of this. Just base coat it with a brush, which will take much longer. So now that we've done that, now the first thing I'm going to do is the heraldic element on the Contemptor. And this is not like the Legion marking. I'm anticipating the Legion marking to go on this shoulder, like it would typically on a Dark Angel, or like up here somewhere. The heraldic shield is going to be this shield in here, and there's a good amount of space to work with. I think it'll be a really good kind of focal point for the model. So, because I really want to have that be a central theme for the whole army, is really leaning on that aesthetic. So, and if you don't want to do, checkers and heraldic elements, why are you playing Cherokee Dark Angels, really? So, I'm going to take a little Vallejo Model Color Black, Old Faithful, and get in here. This way, if we have to go back later and touch anything up, we just use Vallejo Model Color Black. I never want to paint directly on primer because I can't actually touch that up effectively. And I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to nail the armor plates real quick. And you can see that there's overspray, but it's not obliterating the metallics, right? So let's go out there. There's it on my airbrush. get these panels. I was thinking of doing some hazard stripes or something there, but I think it would just get too busy with the rest of the heraldry on the other side of the dreadnought. On the other shoulder, I think having a bunch of hazard stripes on the gun over on this arm could be really unbalancing and just draw a lot of attention away from the intentional heraldic elements versus, just hazard striping. So I don't want to do that. That's looking pretty good as far as the black base coat on the armor goes. And you can see like how much less black armor there is than metallic, especially on the back of the dreadnought. So yes, there's some overspray. Yes, I'm sure there are things that I missed that I'll want to touch up, but in general, that's the black armor. So much easier to do that metallic ahead of time. Paint the armor, come back, then work those metallics, right? And I'll actually just real quick, again, this is going to be a very textural scheme. This is going to be a very textural model. I'm not going to get bogged down in detail work with these guys, even though, Horus Heresy, you can go as hard as you want on, individual models, individual legionaries. I want to save my time and effort for Dark Angels, for like the heraldry and just mapping out unique war gear, kit bashers, conversions, things like that, squads, things like that, rather than getting them going nuts on edge highlighting and X and Y. So next up is going to be Dark Sea Gray from Vallejo Model Air. One of my favorite colors that I've discovered recently. I just love this color. It's a really, really, really soft kind of dark gray. And you can see a little bit of green to it. You can see that green tint to the gray, which I really like. And then when we lighten that up to do the highlights, the brush highlights and chipping and such, it's really going to so we're going to highlight the top of the heraldic shield here, the front top of the head, going down the spine, top of the shoulder, front area of the chest, top of the head. So kind of the same areas that we would do an infantry model. Knees, front part of the leg there, crotch area. Top of this here. And kind of the bottom side of this there. And then a little bit in the middle there on the top. But you can see how soft that gray is. Just really, really soft. And then that'll get washed down and painted on. And I mean, that's going to get a little treatment too as time goes on. So now that we have the kind of basics down there, let's work on some heraldry. So That's why I was going to wait. It's fine. It'll be fine. Let's get some water, clean up a little bit. Okay. Excuse me. So, for this heraldic shield, I think what I want to do is I want to split it in half, top to bottom, and then I want to split the top in half again. So I'm thinking white and black checkers on the bottom with maybe a red stripe. White and black checkers on the bottom, and then a field of black and a field of red. We'll keep it simple. And then transfers, I can... I know I should have thought about this before I started filming, but I've been going back and forth. It's hard to do like diagonal lines into... It would have to be red over white with black next to it, which... Let's just do black and white checkers on the bottom, and then red on top. Field of red, field of black. That's what we're going to do. Executive decision. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to take 6mm Tamiya tape. This is why I should have done the... So you can do the shield first, which in a lot of ways is easier, because if you do the shield first, then you just take tape and you just go boop boop, and you tape off the shield, and then you don't have to worry about overspray because you're just going to paint around the shield. But because I wanted a black field in that shield, I had to highlight it. So I would have had to do black twice, which isn't ideal. I don't love doing things twice when painting. Oh, like doing part of it, then having to, paint. Then you load up the airbrush with the same colors you just cleaned out of it and do another run, right? Like that's not ideal. So get some of that tackiness off because I don't want to peel paint. Make sure that I have a good seal there. Did I bring any saran? No, I didn't bring any saran wrap. It's fine. Yeah. Sorry. It's fine. It'll be fine. Just get that under there. And if I have to touch up stuff, I have to touch up blacks, which is the easiest color to touch up. So not the end of the world if something goes a little sideways on this one. What is this getting hung up on? Just more tape? Yeah, okay. Well, it's kind of getting hung up on the bolter mount, but not really. So Just get that like that. That folds down in there. Okay. Excuse me. So again, just moving my hands to get some of the tackiness off the back of the tape. Even though this is low tack tape, that's why I pay extra for it. You still, especially on freshly painted stuff, especially on freshly painted stuff on top of Forge World resin, you're really best off using. Okay, so what did we decide? We decided on white checkers, and then I'll decide after I meet the white checkers. So what we're going to do for white checkers is should we go crazy? Should we go a little crazy? No. Yeah, fuck it. Let's go a little crazy. So when we're designing this, what we want to do is I'll get my cutting mat out here. Now I want to preserve an area of black. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mask. I want to get that as square as I possibly can. It's pretty darn close. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mask the area of black that I want to save, which is like right come on. There. So I'm going to line up with that middle rivet there. And I'm a little bit above that second rivet from the bottom there. And that'll be important later. But that's the area that's going to stay black. And I'll find a little transfer or something to do in there later. Now I need to do red. So I'm going to get Vallejo Model Color Burnt Red. Move my cutting board. Oh, come on. Nope. Okay. Way more than I need. Is there anything around here that needs to be burnt red? It'll be fine. So Vallejo Model Color Burnt Red. Nice even coat. Let that dry. Maybe help it along. Whoop. It's just blowing a little air from the airbrush. I really need to invest. Really need to invest in a blow dryer. So that's pretty dry. Pretty much dry. Evil Sun Scarlet from Beauty's Workshop. My favorite red ever. great paint. Great paint. Whoa, what is going on with this today? Not been. Yeah, we're going to leave a little bit of that shadow up there at the top. Oh no, you're highlighting up the top. Gosh darn it. We want the highlight on this to match the highlight on the black is the important thing. So I screwed this up. Now this whole thing is just Evil Sun Scarlet, which is fine. It's fine. Because the Evil Sun Scarlet over black wouldn't have worked. Ideally, I don't have to come back. I just talked about doing things twice, and now here I am doing something twice. But it's fine. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with the burnt, or the black red rather. And just in the middle part there, just kind of put that shadow back. The heck? Why did that do that? Okay, let's kind of delete that. That's just licking my finger and rubbing it off. Okay, be less impatient. Let that dry. Let that dry. Another glaze, let that dry. Okay. I think that's probably pretty close. Because remember, we're only using this much of the square there. It's probably a little dark. It's cool. It's cool. Evil Sun Scarlet again, just a little touch. So, ideally, you don't screw up where the highlight is, and you just have to do that once. So you just do the dark black red, you do the Evil Sun Scarlet highlight, and you move on with your lights. I did not do that. So, but it's an easy fix if you do screw it up. That was also part of the point. So let's heat that up, dry that out. Now we're going to cut another square off of this. Kind of get a little bit of that tackiness off there. And the important touchstone here is we're a little bit above that second rivet from the top. Pretty even. Pretty even. That's about as close as I think I'm going to get with that. So, now, my crazy idea was to do kind of a yellow and blue stripe thing. Blue and white stripe? Maybe blue and white stripe. Start off a little. No, let's go for it. Let's go for the whole deal. What's the worst that could happen? I mean, really, I want to build a couple more of these guys at some point, so it's good to have some variety. And I don't want this one to be just like Joe Schmo. I mean, it's a good proving ground. You know what? It should be Joe Schmo. Because It's the first model in the army, really, but you know, YOLO. So this is just Stylen Wren's white airbrush primer. Now the key to this is going to be not to be too heavy with the primer, because this is going to create like a, if you put too, that's all I'm doing. So if you put too much paint next to where you've taped off, it will create a little lip and it'll be visible, and it'll look a little wonky. So we're going to try and avoid that by not doing, try not to do too much, but it is a little ambitious going for kind of 3 different areas with a bunch of different paints. But I'm going to do my standard yellow recipe. It's a very rich, vibrant yellow. This is yellow ochre from Vallejo Model Air. This is the base coat. This is fun. I like this. Because then next it's like, there's not a lot of distance between like doing all the airbrushing on this and just jumping into weathering. There's not a huge amount of distance between that, which is exciting because everybody loves weathering. Because after this, it's like metallics, you know, sponge up the armor, do a couple details. Like the details are really like the eyes. Burned flesh for the shadow. This is Vallejo Gain Air burned flesh for the shadow color on the yellow. And I know it sounds weird, but just trust me, it's perfect. This is one of my favorite recipes that I have, period. Because that, look at that.
Yes,
Like butter. And now this is where, as I say, this is where you make your money, is with the gold yellow glaze over the whole. This is the really thin, really vibrant yellow. This is where you get the richness, is this gold yellow glaze over the previous 2 steps. And you want to hit that burned flesh as well, because you do want to tone that down just a little bit. So look at that, like it just evens out that transition. It's just butter. Like it just works. It's amazing. Not to toot my own horn, but pretty damn cool. And then, what am I gonna do for? I know what. That might be. Well, okay. I know what I'm gonna do. That was my thought process. Okay. Make sure I'm not melting the resin on the model. We're good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2mm masking tape from Vallejo, which I could cut the Tamiya tape, but this is like perfectly straight. I bought this for doing stripes on Adeptus Titanicus Titans, because those are teeny tiny. But I think this is going to work perfectly for our purposes here today as well, if I can get it started. Okay. I put my cutting mat away. Genius. This stuff, like, you can see, this is real thin. Oh, perfect. I think that's probably all I need. What's going on here? Whoa. Okay. That was dumb. Okay. Put that off to the side. honestly, that's probably all I need. I'm going to cut that padded part off, that starter part. And I usually need less than I think. So I'm just going to err on the side of that's really all I need right now. And then, so what this is going to do is it's going to leave the yellow behind when I paint over it. So even though I did yellow on the whole area, I was never planning on having a yellow panel. It's actually going to be yellow stripes on a blue panel instead of something else. So you paint the stripe color first instead of going through and trying to mask instead of going through and trying to mask off stripes, I can just paint the stripe color first, come through, mask just where I want the stripes to be, and then paint the panel color. So this way I can just make sure those are lined up, make sure those are even. That looks pretty even. There's about the same 2mm gap in between those as the actual tape. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Deep Sky. Yeah, we'll do... I don't really want to do Dark Prussian. I could do... That would be interesting. I want this to stay a dark blue. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Hex Lichen, which is purple. Really, like, almost a black purple. It might as well be black. So you can see here on my hand, like, how dark that is. Why not? I'll take some Hex Lichen. But on this model, it's going to be damn near black. But that'll be a really cool shadow color for that blue. Like, sure, it looks more purple on the edges, but the edges don't matter because only the field here matters. So I don't know. This is interesting. This might work. This might look like crap, but it might work. I don't know that. I don't think I've done this before. This particular combination. So do I want to use the Deep Sky, which is evidently it's been a minute since I used Deep Sky. How dark is this really? How does that compare to blue? Ooh, that sounds watery. This does not sound like it's... Oh, I like that. I don't know if that's... Is this going to... Do we think the blue is even going to show up? It might be too dark to even show up on that Hex Lichen. I might have to go French. Ooh, French blue is pretty light. Oh. Well, let's try the... So now I have another question, which is this blue is more saturated. The blue is more saturated than the Deep Sky, but I think the Deep Sky will show up better than the blue. So do I want it to be really saturated? The red is really saturated. Well, you only live once. Let's do the blue. So this is Vallejo Model Air Blue. And let's see if it shows up. If it doesn't show up, we can change our approach. Not showing up. Okay. Too dark of a base coat for the dark blue. Not a huge surprise there. So we are going to adjust over to French blue. What? Yeah. Which is one of my very favorite colors. I use it for my blue Admech scheme. It's just a wonderfully rich blue. So I'm not going to even include that Model Air blue step in the recipe just because it's immaterial. It has no bearing on the final. Like, I'm not going to do it again. The next time I do a blue heraldic element for this army, there we go. So that French blue is showing up. That's a nice blue, but it's dark, but I want it to be dark. I don't want a pale kind of ultramarines, whatever blue. I want a dark, rich blue. And you'll see when we pull this off, when we pull off the tape, you're going to see just how, like, I mean, that yellow and blue is really just going to jump off the model. There will be a tendency for that to be too much, but we have to remember that we are going to be weathering this. It's going to get oil washed and filtered down. It's going to get, varnished down. So don't worry. I'm not worried. I'm a little worried, but we can fix it down the road. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You just spray the thing black. I mean, throw a couple transfers on there, call it a day. It's worth trying. It's worth trying to figure it out. Now, I want to get this off before it actually dries fully. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, that is lush. That is lush. Now we get the red and the black. And then we can take off yeah, they're gonna look like Bretonians in space. This is gonna be great. Oh yeah, look at that. That is gnarly. So now what I'll do is I'll try and find a transfer or do some freehand or something, draw some more attention up here. And then now what's really going to be important, and I'll just do this for the sake of demonstrating in case people are getting nervous seeing that. I mean, that looks cool. I don't care who you are. That looks cool. I love it. But what's really gonna draw that together too is gonna be when you frame it with that steel metallic trim that's going everywhere. So it's not just like bleeding, because visually there was no kind of, it wasn't finite. It was just kind of this big panel of heraldry. And now with this metallic trim, even just, I'm not going to do it all, but even with the metallic trim just base coated, because then we can contain, it'll be like a finite element on the model. It just, oh, that might have been bad. Rushing. Nope, not too bad. Pro tip, don't rush this part. Like, you see how that changed it? See, like, how much that changed how that reads by just doing that little bit of trim. Now that looks like a little heraldic, like tilting shield. And when we further develop the red and the black fields, it's just going to accentuate that even more. We could do some checkers in the, like, red and white checkers, and then find the transfer. I'm gonna have to look at the transfer sheet and figure out what I want to do there. We can do that down the line. But for now, for 40 minutes of work, I mean, we're looking pretty good. The armor's airbrushed and highlighted. The metallics are base coated. We just have to go back and hit those with a brush. The heraldic shield is started. So, we are well on our way. And it looks cool. I love it. This is going to be a really cool army. So thank you for your support. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below so that everybody can see the answer. We'll be back soon to kind of work on those metallics a little bit, and then do a little bit of detailing as well, and kind of plan out the rest of this model. This is obviously the heraldic shield, and kind of the other shoulder are going to take a lot of the focus, but we also want to make sure that we're maintaining focus on the head of the model as well. So a couple tricks there, pick out some cool transfers, and just try to have fun with it. But so far, pretty cool. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working on the heraldry for the Contemptor Cortus. And what that means is painting checkers. So checkers are tough. Checkers are something that definitely takes some practice. You have to have a very deliberate approach, I think, to painting checkers and a steady hand. I mean, there's really I would say like there's no easy way to do it, but it gets easier the more that you do it, if that makes sense. So what I want to do here is I want to do some white checkers on the red here, and I want to do some checkers at the bottom of the shoulder over there. I was thinking of doing some down here, but that might get a little messy. Think that would draw too much attention, really. Let's just do the shoulders. So here I have a Winsor & Newton Series 7, size 0. One of those rare times that kind of step down a brush size. Usually I work with a size 1, but for stuff like this, you know, you want to use a pretty small brush. Game color Wolf Gray. We do not actually want to paint white. White is not going to show up. Right? It's just not. It's going to take too many layers. It's going to take too much effort. The key is like we don't want to have to repeat the checkers. We don't want to have to repeat the boxes over and over and over and over and over again. Really, I just want to paint like one coat of gray and maybe 2 coats of white on each box. Because that's essentially what we're going to be doing. Is we're going to be coming in here. We're going to be coming in here and painting a series of boxes to get to ultimately just fill up this space. Same thing over here. So we're just going to be painting a series of boxes. And what I mean by that, so it's kind of a straight line. And what we're looking for, I would like this to be about 1/3. And you can see how thin this paint is. Very, very thin. I don't need this to be great coverage the first time around. I just need it to be accurate. I can work on coverage down the line. And it also means I don't have to press very hard to get it to show up. All the reasons that we use thin paint. Those are about the same size. One on the left is a little bit bigger. That's okay, we can fix that. I'm not worried about it right now. Because then we're going to come up here, make another box. 2 vertical lines. 2 horizontal lines. And I'm just filling this in with basically horizontal lines. And I get my 3rd square. Sorry, hang on a second. I can't tell if my kid is laughing or crying. Either way, they're supposed to be asleep. So hang on, give me 1 second. Okay, it was definitely laughing. But so basically 2 horizontal lines, or excuse me, two vertical lines, and then two horizontal lines. Fill in with horizontal lines. And then we're just going to repeat that for oops, that one went a little far. That's okay. And the reason we're doing, obviously this works for any color, right? Any color checker. But the reason we're doing the white checkers over the red is because we can go back and kind of tidy up. You just ask yourself, like, which color will be easier to tidy up with? Typically, it's the darker color. Because, I mean, I'm not good enough to just paint these the first time. I have to go back and tidy up, which is fine. You don't have to get it the first time. I'm all about finding strategies because that also takes a lot of the pressure off from having to be like, oh, I got to paint these perfect squares every time. Like, no, I just don't want to concentrate that hard. I don't want to work that hard to try and get it perfect every time. That's pretty damn good. I'm not going to sit here and say that's not like really good. I'm happy with that. It's not perfect, but that's pretty damn good. I've done this a few times. If you want to get good at this, play Orcs. But now I'm questioning how much I really want to do some more over here or whether or not I want to find another spot. I kind of want to find another spot. Because if you look at like a lot of the color plates for the Dark Angels and stuff, they have like a vambrace or like part of the leg armor will be in that checker pattern. So I want to kind of evoke some of that imagery so that when it's in the army, then you can draw those visual elements together. Sinless. Where to do it? I just don't know. I don't want to do it on the same side as that. Yeah, we're going to go with the original plan, I think. And now because this is like a weird curve right here, what I want to do is I'm just going to pick an area here. I'm just going to pick an area here for the first square. Fill it in. You can see how well that light gray covers even black. And this doesn't have to be a lot. We're not going like full lamenters on this shoulder pad. I do one more row. So vertical. And then two horizontal. This one's a little wonky. Not bad, but I need to touch that one up for sure. They're on a curved surface, on a curved like plate. It does get a little weird. So another one there. Another one there. There. Kind of like right there. And like right there. Connect the dots. Obviously, orc check marks are a lot of fun because you don't even have to be like accurate with those. Because orcs painted them. They don't have to be straight. They don't have to match and be the same as the other ones in the design. Orcs wouldn't need them to match. So that's a luxury orc players have. There we go. Horizontal lines. Sometimes if I'm doing these for orcs, I won't even paint the guidelines. I'll just go in with like horizontal lines, vertical lines. So I think that's all I'm going to do on that shoulder, because I'm going to put a transfer here of some kind to kind of make the heraldry on that shoulder. I don't know. I gotta say, I'm not. That'll be fine when the heraldry gets on there. I feel it takes away from this being here. It's fine. I'm not going to paint it black, so we're just going to have to accept it. Now what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to get the white, Vallejo model color white. And I'm going to grab those squares, fill them in. And this is pretty much just using mostly like vertical lines. Just kind of do the first pass here. Not worried about getting it perfect this first time through. I feel like there needs to be another box right here. Finish that off. Okay. A little there. Then there. Oh, shit. Okay. That's fine. And then we'll come over here. Do some horizontal now. And we're just kind of building up the layers in different directions, kind of build up. There we go. Okay. And now coming over here. Same idea. That way the paint's not kind of building up in the same areas that it was the first time around. This is now going horizontally. This is going to cover a little easier, a little better. Get more of an even coverage on there, rather than if we had just gone in with the vertical brush strokes again. Okay. This shoulder's a mess. Like you can see that, it's a mess. Right? This shoulder's not bad, but still kind of a mess. Okay. So I'm going to take a drop of Evil Sunz Scarlet. Excuse me. And then very gently reshape. Reshape. You see how these squares are kind of overlapping here because this middle one's a little too big? We can just come in there, do like a vertical line, and boom. Those are matching again. Same thing here. Oops, let's twist it this way. You can see that bottom left checker is off. Just come in with the Evil Sunz Scarlet. Adjust that. Pretty close. So now we're using the red to fix our mistakes here. And what we're trying to avoid is a back and forth now. We want to get in and get out with the red. We don't want to adjust, get discouraged, make a mistake, adjust. Like that looks pretty clean. Is it perfect? No. Do I see maybe just to pull in a little bit here? And I see one more here, actually. This up here needs to get evened out for sure. There you go. That looks pretty damn good. I'm happy with that. Same thing on the other side. Excuse me. With the black. And this is going to be a little bit more extensive because I rushed this a little bit more than I did the red. But I also knew that I had more leeway here. This was more free form in the sense that I didn't have that red box already. On the other shoulder, I already had that red box I had to stay in, which helped. Sometimes if you're doing this, you know, having those areas already committed to the design really helps. That way you're not like having to make it up as you go along. And that can get a little arbitrary, you know. So this needs to be a little bigger here. This is going to largely disappear down here, which I guess is fine. It needs to do that there. Paint that just to get an idea of what I'm looking at here. Not there yet. Pretty good, not yet. So I messed up that corner there. Bottom of that there. And then I don't know what's going on with this little blob over here, but it's not looking like a square, that's for sure. Well, now it kind of looks like it's got a handle on it. And this is what I want to avoid. I do not want to keep going back and forth, black and white, trying to get this thing sorted out. Right? I just want to get it sorted. A little bit there. Okay. All right, this is a mess. That is a mess. Not. It's just the corners of these are really soft. There's not like a well-defined. Let's see if we can tighten this up just a little bit. Because if the corners are soft, it doesn't really look like checkers. It just looks kind of like a mess. But if we can tighten that up a little bit, and then also keep in mind that that border is going to be there with the metallic trim. And that's really going to help lock everything in as well. So, I don't know. I think we're good. I think the right shoulder is more successful than the left shoulder. No. I don't like it. I gotta follow my gut. With the model's left shoulder with the black and white, I just am not happy with it. I don't like how it looks just on the model in general. So I think it really takes away from the right shoulder too much, and it's not really adding anything to the models. It's just more it's just checkers for checkers' sake, and I don't want that. I want this, I want everything to be purposeful. I want everything to make sense. And if I think something doesn't make sense, then I'm going to trust that versus getting further down the trough with the model and going, I'm going to have to do something else with. What is going on? Like, that heraldry is not working for me. I need to do something else. Well, down the line, it would have just been too bad, right? Why is that so satin? That's weird. It's better. So I'll still find a transfer or something to put there. I still want to put something there. But honestly, I think that the heraldry on the shoulder is enough on the model, for this size of the model. I think we're fine. I think we're good. So I'm going to leave that. And then what I'm going to do is grab a little bit of that dark sea gray. Because if you look at, so this will actually be more beneficial in more ways than one. Because if you look at like the top here, that highlight's a little weird. There's like a hard line on that highlight, which I don't really know where that came from. So I'm just going to feather that just a little bit with the dark sea gray. And then I just want to come through here and kind of put that highlight back there. That's it. A few minutes of airbrushing and all is right with the world. Undid all that work that we just did. But it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal. It's fine. It's one of those things that you can't really know if it's going to work. I guess, I have like checkered transfers. I guess I could have done something with that, which I should look into, actually. Because I was looking through my transfers last night as I was doing some work on my Blood Angels, and noticed I had a lot of like Ultramarines and stuff like that have checkers, which would be really useful for this project, especially when it comes time to do vehicles. Instead of having to paint long swathes of checkers in like a stripe or something like that, I could just use transfers to be perfect. So maybe that'll come up in a tutorial later. But for doing like a specific area like this, freehanding the checkers is always going to be kind of the best idea. So next segment, we'll do some transfer work. And then maybe a little bit of sponging, a little bit of weathering. To integrate those transfers and to kind of weather up the recessed areas of the Contemptor before painting all the trim and doing the metallics. Then it's really just, eye lenses and a bunch of detailing, and then just a lot of weathering. So I'm excited. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments below. Ask. That way everybody can see the answer. but that's pretty much how I paint checkers. They're not perfect. They're close enough for sure. They're 100%. They're close enough. So, I can definitely live with that. And then we're going to throw a transfer over that. That's going to kind of break up those lines anyway. So, but yeah, lighter color usually is the easier one to touch up. And so whichever color that you want to touch up with, for in this case, the red, is the color you want to put down first. Paint the checkers over it, and then you can kind of go back and adjust. All right. Sorry if the painting over the other checkers is traumatizing, but it just wasn't working for me. So next one, we get to pick out transfers. One of my favorite things to do. We're going to do one of my favorite things to do, which is transfers. And specifically figuring out what transfers go where and how that's going to fit in the overall scheme. I love doing transfers because it's really when model starts to get a lot of its character, really starts to come alive, when you start getting those transfers placed on there. Oh, there it is. Looking all over for something that's right in front of me. Yeah. So I have here Forge World Dark Angels Legion transfer sheet. I love the Forge World sheets. I really defer to the Forge World sheets versus using Games Workshop proper transfers, partly because, one, this is a Horus Heresy project. So these are the Horus Heresy Legion transfer sheets from Forge World. So they're very, very good. Quality on these is fantastic. And they're just cool. They're cooler. I think they're cooler. The designs are cooler than on the, just like 40K Dark Angels or whatever. Not to say that there aren't a wide range of transfers that are really, really helpful, especially cross genre. A lot of my Blood Angels use the Horus Heresy transfers, but then on things like working on these repulsors, these transfers are from the 40K vehicle transfer sheet, because I wanted kind of more utilitarian transfers there. And then on the back, you have the blood dropping wings from the Forge World transfer sheet. So, well, that turned up really red. Okay, so what we're doing now is on this Contemptor Cortus, we need to find a transfer that kind of bridges the checkered area and the black area, so something gold. And then for the shoulder here, maybe one of these like real small Dark Angels. So I'm thinking for that shoulder, can't even see the white ones here, but maybe one of these, the Hexagrammaton in gold, or the Hexagrammaton here in gold. Maybe something like that. A lion's head. Actually, lion's head might be best. That would look pretty cool. I want to find a home for one of these Dreadwing symbols here. And then on the maybe we'll put something down here on a leg. Then maybe a key. Nah, we'll see. Let's see what we're going to do here. First things first. Liquitex Gloss Varnish. Okay. Let's adjust that. Oh, come on. There you go. So a little bit of the old Liquitex gloss varnish. And we're just going to lay this down wherever we think we want to transfer. If we don't end up putting a transfer there, not a big deal, because we're just going to matte varnish right over it. So who cares? For sure, we're just going to do this whole heraldic shield area. Just, we don't know exactly what we're going to put there yet. We're going to do this shoulder. And I might sneak something in there, but probably not. I might sneak something right there. Maybe. I want to put something down here. I might want to put something right there. And that's about it. I can't really see myself putting something anywhere. Maybe up there, but odds are no. So we'll just leave that as is. That'd be cool to like put a key. Okay, we'll do that too. So for anytime I'm doing water slide transfers, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold a paper towel in half and get it wet. Move that off to the side. Oh, I did that prematurely. Oh well. So do not want to get the transfer sheet wet. I jumped the gun. So I'm going to put that off to the side and just do this carefully. If I cut this, I cut this. I have more of these folders. Because what was going to happen was if that water hit the corner of this or something, it was going to ruin all the transfers that I touched, which I really don't want. So for the design to bridge, I think we're going to pick one of these rather than the lion's head. This is a cool kind of esoteric symbol. I'm going to take one of these tiny, one of these real tiny red keys here, and I'm going to put it in this bottom yellow stripe on there. I think that'll look really cool. Oh, but it's facing the wrong direction. Okay, never mind them. It's fine. It's fine. That was a good idea. It's fine. Maybe I'll just put a 1 on the other shoulder. That's what I'll do. I'll just put a white 1 over there. So I'll take one of these big ones, First Legion. Put this on the shoulder. I think I'm going to leave the yellow and blue striping alone, maybe. So that's the shoulders sorted. And the cross piece on the lower leg, or what to do is that's not big enough for the Dreadwing, right? No. Yeah, let's do the cross keys. Let's do those in red. And then let's do it's going to be tight, but I think it'll work. I'm not putting anything above his head, but I think yeah. Well, not too so I got. I have a crazy idea that might backfire. Might look great, might backfire. We'll find out in a minute. And then do I have like a little I'm getting unbalanced to that side now. Which actually we kind of need if I follow through with that. So we'll do a little cross there too. Which at some point I want to get better at freehanding these little crosses and keys and the hexagrammaton. I just think it'll there we go. I think it'll open up a lot of possibilities. So here we have the wet paper towel. I do this so that that's just going to be absorbed through the backing. And then it'll release the transfer. And I don't have to go looking for it in like I used to do it in, in water. Then you have to go fishing for it and it's just a mess. So this cuts that whole thing out. Microset and Microsole. If you've been following the Patreon for a little while, I have a lot of tutorial videos on transfers, but I keep making them because, well, I really like doing transfers, and when I'm doing a transfer video like this one, I explain the reasoning, and I think it's helpful to show kind of the thought process between transfer selection. So what I have going on right now, transfer-wise, is I want to put the gold hexagrammaton symbol bridging these two fields here, the black one and the checkered one. And then I want to put the white dreadwing symbol in the middle of this. It might look way too crazy busy. In that case, I'm going to move the dreadwing symbol from here, possibly to the thigh, or up here on top of his head, but I really don't want to do that because it's pointless to have a marking up there. Nobody's going to see it, right? The only people that would ever see that would be like repair servitors, right? You're not trying to see this guy flying over him, right? So it's completely pointless to put any kind of marking up there. I might move it over here to the thigh because I think it'll kind of fit there. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we just have to scrap it. I'm going to put the 1 here. I'm going to put the crossed keys down here on this thigh. So what's going to happen is this is going to be super busy, and then we're going to bring that all, like there's going to be transfer here, 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 minimum. on the left side of the dreadnought to kind of pull some of that visual weight over to the other side. I'm not going to do any crazy OSL or anything on the Volkite. I will paint it. It's not going to be all just that metallic, but and then the eyes will also help pull visually. So the eyes are going to be red. The keys down here are going to be red, and so you'll have red, red, red kind of in a line going through the model, right? So that'll help visually balance. So first things first, let's do the ones that I know I'm going to do, and then we'll do the experimental ones. So that's this one and this one. So the keys, I'm just picking these up. That was micro set. And I'm just picking these up off the paper on the end of the brush, like so. I could have trimmed that a little better. I could have trimmed that a lot better, actually. This is just the clear portion of the transfer. It does not matter at all, so I can cut that off. But I don't want to drag. What I want to do is I just want to press. I do not want to drag because I don't want to move. I don't want to pull this transfer all around this model. But this blade is sharp enough. I can just press. That will do the cutting for me. And I can just lift off the part of the transfer that I don't want, that I've cut off. So micro set, we'll get that sitting down there in place. There's that part of the transfer that we cut off. Perfect. So it's a small detail, but let me get this kind of focused in again. So it's a small detail, but it does help pull everything together, right? You can see that bit of, what is going on here with the camera? There we go. So you can see that bit of red starting to pull. That's what we want. So again, a little bit of micro set. Grab the one, First Legion. Dark Angels a little bit better. You know what would have been great, actually? Half a Dark Angel symbol. But they don't give you many of those, do they? What? It's a shame. So what I'm going to do is cut one of these in half. There we go. Put that on the... There you go. That'll probably be pretty cool. That's fine. The one is fine. It's just like, it's just a little meh by itself there. And then I know I'm going to do the hexagrammaton thing there. Let's get that really centered. Oh, maybe a little lower, but that actually is pretty close. There we go. And then okay, I think the Dreadwing design actually worked better than the hexagrammaton design. So I'm actually going to pull that. Oh, come on. More microset. Come on. Stay with me. Stay workable. So the microset's going to soften this transfer, and it becomes, it's either not going to come off or it's going to come off and not still be usable. I'm trying to get it to come off and have it still be usable, which I think I did. And we can bring that down here, put it like so. Oof. I don't know, it's a bit much. It's strong. Starting to look a little word bearers-y. Yep, scrap that. I like the Dreadwing symbol here. I just want it to be a little higher. Man, come on. There's not usually this much back and forth, but sometimes that's just how it goes. And you have to be... Can I move this just with my finger? Because that would be great. No, because now it's off center. Shit. Shit. Come on. Yes. Yes. Come on. No, it's not. That's not right. Get off that corner. Come on. Crumpled. Damn. Okay, so we'll just change the plan into... solid line. I need another one of those Dreadwing things. Because that works. That definitely works. I just screwed it up. I was trying to do too much at once. I was trying to move transfers that really shouldn't have been moved. Trying to reuse transfers that definitely should have been reused. So that was all on me. One thing at a time. And here's the half Dark Angel symbol. And that looks dumb. I am firing on all cylinders right now, let me tell you. Although, usually I'm much more successful at this. That'll work. Leave that there. Usually I'm much better at this. Not today. Not today. Oh my God, let go. So yeah, this will give you some insight into the process, even when the process is a bit of a mess. Or why I'm sticking this on my hand. Just asking for trouble. There we go. That's better. God. There we go. That's better. Okay. Well, I wasted a lot of transfers, wasted a lot of time, but we are where we are now. So this is Micro Sole. This is going to soften the transfers and help them to just blend in seamlessly. And I took this one off the thigh because it was just too much. And then the little half Dark Angel thing was not working either. I mean, which is fine. It's a little frustrating just that I didn't think that out better. Transfers are a finite resource, but if something doesn't look right, it doesn't look right. I do like where we ended up for the most. I don't know. I like it. It's fine. It's fine. There's what it is at this point. yeah, the little lion head thing looks good. The Dreadwing thing looks good. I mean, there's a lot going on that shield, but that I think is okay. So this is just a damp paper towel, and I'm just rolling this to get just all the wrinkles out. Help that transfer really lay down flat. Also because I'm a patient. And then let that dry. Gloss varnish. Oh my God. Let me just stop. God, look how much. So much varnish on there. It's crazy. They do that. A little bit of matte varnish. Foam. Perfect seamless integration. Too late to change anything now. I think that's enough indecision for one day on this guy. So when we come back, we'll do a little bit of weathering or just some chipping on the transfers and such on the black panels, recessed panels, paint some eye lenses, and then we'll go to town on the metallics. The metallics are really going to be what finishes this model off and gives it a lot of its character. Is going to be the metallics and the oil washes and that part of it. This part is just kind of laying the foundation for that. So I'm excited. This should come together real quick. And until then, happy painting. Talk to you soon. And I'm looking forward to the next segment. I'm going to tackle just a little bit of just basic chipping, like I said. And then from there, we'll just dive in on these metallics. So in this one, we're just going to do some basic chipping, a little bit of weathering on the transfers that we just laid down. That way, we paint the trim. We don't have to worry about transfers afterwards. But this is going to be very, very light, very minimal chipping at this stage. So, well, we'll see how it goes. This is Vallejo model color black gray. Very, very dark gray. I don't like using just pure black. I might mix a little black into there because that turned out a little lighter than I remember, actually. So I might get a little bit of black in there. Go. There we go. I want it to be pure black. And grab my tweezers here. It's just a little bit of pluck foam. Want to concentrate on areas that would get some wear and tear. Typically, I'll do edge highlighting before I do any kind of chipping. I don't want to highlight around the edges. I'm not doing the whole dreadnought with the chipping. I'm going to come back and do the rest of it after I do the edge highlighting. But I want to get this done. And I'm getting most of this. See how nice that random pattern is? Getting most of the paint off the sponge before I come in here. And just a little bit of chipping. Just a bit. Just to give it just a little bit of character. Integrate those transfers just a touch. I mean, I could have really, this is so light. I could have done this when I did the metallics. It wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But here we are. So I think for now that's fine. I'll come back and do a little bit more. Chipping. Maybe I'll do a quick pass with some very thin paint, very thin brush. Maybe I'll come in here and do a couple scratches. But nothing too extreme. A couple little scratches there. So you can see, so just got a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is kind of revisit these metallics. Actually, before that, let's do some eye lenses. That way I don't have to worry about them. So this is Vallejo Model Color Burnt Red. I'm just constantly leaking like that. Way more than I need. So Vallejo Model Color Burnt Red. And if there were any targeting lenses or anything, I'd be doing them too, but there aren't. But these nice big Dreadnought eye lenses are a really nice focal point, and they really help to draw the eye into the face of the Dreadnought. It's gonna make a huge difference. Okay, let's get. Gosh, what is going on with me today? Hello. Okay, that's better. Now we can see what we're doing, right? Now we see that nice chipping. A couple little scratches here. Then we're going to get these lenses sorted out. Nope. That's a little lens right there. Cool. A little bit of Drucci Violet. And then while I'm doing this, I'm going to have the exhaust manifold in the in the cup because I don't want to sit here and wait for paints to dry. This wash is going to take a minute to dry. So I'm just going to move on with, get a nice line there. Nice line there. Then I'll move on with refreshing these metallics here. So kind of just everywhere that I got overspray, I'm just going to revisit with the exhaust manifold and then paint those trim pieces that obviously I wasn't painting with the airbrush in the first place. So like these chains hanging down here. But really, we're just blocking this stuff out because we're going to really hammer these with washes and pigments and all kinds of fun techniques in order to really give it a lot of character. And then we can bring it back a little bit at the end with some very targeted highlights with metallics and stuff. But overall, I really want to play with the washes and pigments and such to get as much texture into this game as I can. So a little bit more trim there. Right. And these are going to get washed down. Because right now they're going to be pretty stark. All this lighter metallic is going to be pretty stark on the scheme, but it works. I mean, it definitely still reads as Dark Angels. It's just going to be a lot of metallic initially here until it gets brought in line with the rest of the kind of mood of the dreadnought. Fair enough. This trim, get the inside. Outside that, we already got that. Got that. Where did that come from? There's no way. They've been there the whole time. Crazy. I'm gonna take some of this dark gray. I can work that out later exactly. But for now, I think that dark gray will be good enough. That's just crazy that it's been there the whole time. I hadn't noticed it. But you do get a little blindness working on just specific areas for so long that, like, I've just been working on that shield for so long that when I branch out from that, I'll maybe see something that I hadn't noticed before. That's fine. It's an easy fix. Okay, that's good. Now we're starting to see this thing develop. Now we're really starting to see it. Instead of just this big kind of black gray entity, now we're starting to see some of that character come out. And then as we wash these down and develop the metallics, it'll just get reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. And it's just going to end up being really cool. We're going to do a quick base coat highlight on the metallics, and then, oops. We'll work on finishing off the rest of the armor. Edge highlighting, chipping, and then we'll go to town on the metallics. Because I'm not just going to like null and oil the metallics and give them a dry brush highlight and call it a day. I really want to develop more texture than that. I want to develop more than that. So we'll pretty much finish painting these other elements and then really get deep into the metallic textures and such, which I'm looking forward to. So those would be mostly brass. This is fine for base coat here. That's fine. Got that. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to come actually I overpainted this a little bit. Come back in with that dark gray mix. Get some of that shade back on that eye. Okay. A little bit of Evil Sun Scarlet for the eye lenses. Lenses in general. Orange Fire from Game Color, which I need to get more of because I am out. I might as well be out. And then Ice Yellow from Model Color. And white. Okay. Oops. Starting in the front of the lens. Going about 2/3 of the way back, making sure that I'm leaving plenty of definition at the bottom. Now I'm going to mix a little bit of Orange Fire into the red. Same thing. Maybe about 1/3 of the way. So, that was not what I meant to do. Shit. Rushing. Oh my gosh. Why am I doing this? Go. Where's that? Goodness. A little bit of that Drucci Violet to kind of reestablish that line at the bottom of the lens. And now we're back to looking kind of normal, or how I wanted it to look, rather. So a little bit of that Evil Sun Scarlet with the orange. Get this really strong red orange. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of that ice yellow, really lighten that up. Even more ice yellow. Just right at the front there. And then we go back with a little bit of this Evil Sun Scarlet. Kind of ease that transition a little bit, because now it's looking a little too orange, a little too yellow. There we go. Oh, of course. So again, Evil Sun Scarlet, a little bit of that orange fire. Mix with a little ice yellow. There we go. And then boom. White dot to make it a lens. Perfect. I'll take that. And just get the very back corner of the eye lens. There we go. Looking good. Same exact technique as with the Space Marine eye lens, just these are bigger. There we go. Eye's done. Little lens to the front is done. Trim is base coated. And the metallics are like base coated. So let's get a little bit of dark aluminum in the mix. And we'll get a little bit easier brush to work with here. The claws and such, I'm not that concerned. Again, this is all going to get washed way down, but we're going to stick with kind of where we think we're going to be highlighting. Down here. Definitely the chains, we want to be kind of a focal point there. Definitely middle here, middle there, middle here. Tops those. Going down the hoses there. Front and center on the trim. A little bit on the hoses to the side, although I want to minimize those. I want to wash those down. I really want to keep the focus. Really want to keep the focus on the helmet, on the middle of the face, right on that kind of cross on the front of the helmet. Tops of the shoulders here. Trim on the pad here. Trim coming down the front here. Same here. Now we're starting to look a lot stronger. Right now we're starting to look a lot better defined. And when we come in and we define that black armor as well, that's only going to grow. Right? But already you can see how much better defined just this whole thing is. And then coming back here, you know, a little bit at the tops here, maybe a little bit in the midsection. But for the most part, I mean, that's where we're focusing, right? This is all this internal kind of stuff is all going to get just washed out. So, oh, I almost forgot the exhaust manifold. We're going to do this hose because if this were black, it would just, oh, missed the trim here too. My goodness. We just missed this, or this close combat one. It's fine. There you go. There we go. Sure. There we go. So if we try to paint that black, we just kind of get lost. So really going to be depending on the metallic washes and such to really tone this all down and bring it all together at the end, which I'm confident we can do. So there we have it. Some more progress, a little bit of chipping. We integrated those transfers a little bit more. That's looking a little more natural. I like where we're at with the transfers. And then, you know, we got the eye lenses done and got the metallic trim kind of base coated and highlighted. We can kind of press pause on that. When we come back, we're going to do a little bit of color blocking on Volkite to kind of get this to a place where it's reading as having, you know, multiple different elements. Then we'll come back and we'll do some edge highlighting and stuff to really just define this. Edge highlighting, some sponge chipping, and then after all that, then we're just going to go on a oil and enamel and pigment kind of frenzy and really just let loose on this thing and just grime it way up and just bring it way down and really anchor it in the Horus Heresy, in the First Legion, because it's a little too pretty right now. So we can fix that though. So hope you enjoyed the tutorial. And like I said, next time we're going to work on the black parts of the model, and then maybe some brass parts as well, like on the Volkite and things like that. And after that, we should be closing this thing out pretty quick with all those washes. So that'll be a really fun one to film. I'm really looking forward to that. So thanks. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below so that everybody can see the answer. And, you know, we'll see you soon for the next part, part 5, where, you know, we really bring everything together and get the baseline model that we then grime up and grind down into the Horus Heresy. So today we're going to be looking at a few different ways to work on black. So we really have 3 different black elements or materials on this model. We have the armor, which is going to get a highlight because we use the dark sea gray, which is a very, very soft. I can't see really well. Very soft greenish gray. And then I've just gone through since the last tutorial, and there you go. It's a little brighter. I've gone through since the last, let's get that out of the way, through the last tutorial and just base coated some stuff black. That's going to be a hard black that's just going to get an edge highlight The armor will get a softer edge highlight and a little bit of sponging. And then there are some black hoses under here that'll get a little rubberization as well. So a few different treatments when it comes to, is this a cast bearing? Yeah. When it comes to the black, so I think you get different looks depending just on the highlight color. These are all base coated with Vallejo model color black, and then the armor has a really just one highlight of dark sea gray from Vallejo model Air, and then after that it's all in the highlights and everything. So I think first things first, working from kind of the inside out, how I usually like to do. We'll come back here and work on these hoses that you can see underneath the body there. So I would be using Secret Weapon Miniatures rubber and rubber highlight. These are really cool paints, actually. If you're doing tires, these are a must. These are an absolute must. So I'll just get a little bit of that on the palette. And it's kind of a greenish bluish grayish is how I would very succinctly describe that color. It's a very specific color. You can use, typically I'll use like a bearing, like I'll use a dark blue, very true kind of blue. But we'll give the rubber a shot, just a wide kind of highlight there. And again, this doesn't have to be, we just want this to read as a soft material, not a hard material, right? And so by using more desaturated grays and kind of a wider highlight, it's not as sharp as the other highlights that we'll be doing on the gun casing, for example. And then this is the rubber highlight color from Secret Weapon. Just a little more focused towards the areas that would catch light. I mean, sure. Looks good to me. Nothing, I mean, this is not anything groundbreaking, nothing really to go crazy over, but it's effective. Ineffective certainly carries weight with me. So moving on up, next is the armor. And for that, I'm going to mix a little bit of Vallejo Model Air German gray, which is a very green gray, as you can see. Very similar to it's like a highlight color for the dark sea gray. Right, so I got a little bit of that in the palette. And then I'm actually going to use a pale blue. You can see it's kind of grayish, but it's very blue, but it's very light. And that's, instead of using like a white or something to lighten the dark sea gray, I'm going to use that pale blue. So I really want this to be, I want this to have some character. I want it to have some teeth, right? As far as the color goes. I don't want this to be kind of blah gray. And you can see here, it is gray. This color, the highlight color in the middle there, it's gray, but it's got a little something to it, And so making sure that the paint very, very thin, and using the side of the brush. If you want to see me go into edge highlighting Nirvana, there's an edge highlighting tutorial video. The grayscale tutorial for the Contemptor Dreadnought or the Repulsor tank, also a lot of edge highlighting in those videos. So you can see we are doing a sharp edge highlight, and this looks pretty striking. It's not that white. There's so much contrast between the edge highlight and the armor that on video it's like really exaggerated. It's not that. It looks almost white on the video. I promise you it's a little more subdued than that, but we do want it to rate, right? We don't just want, get these rivets in here, just real gentle, because we're going to be doing a little bit of sponging and a little bit of chipping and washes. So the edge highlights just kind of to establish some boundaries for the armor plates and everything, and then we'll come back later and texture those up and give them some more character. But this is to kind of set some boundaries. And that way, if we don't end up sponging something, or we end up being a little lighter on the weathering than we were originally anticipating, this way the armor's still edge highlighted, right? So we're covering all our bases instead of going back, doing the chipping, and then coming back and trying to do the edge highlighting after the fact, which sucks. Is not something I enjoy doing. It takes, this way I'm just getting all the edges that would catch the light and leaving the underside kind of ignored. So vertical lines like that. There we go. You see, I'm using the edge of the brush. I want to keep those lines. Sharp. These are going to get a lot of sponge chipping, so I'm less inclined to spend a whole lot of time here. Right. Okay. All right. Quick job, man. Getting bogged down. There we go. And if I'm having to like reach up under here, I'm just not gonna bother. I'll get a little bit on the edge here. But make sure you get these boxes nice here, because these won't get as much weathering as they'll get washes and stuff, but there's not gonna be like a lot of sponge weathering on the back of the ammo casing, on the back of the Dreadnought, right? You wouldn't expect that area to get very much impact in combat. So I'm kind of leave that alone. Yeah, a little sloppy, little sloppy. And this is kind of broad strokes. This doesn't have to be super precision, even edge highlight. This can be a little rough because we're going to come back and texture it out, right? Do some chipping, do some washing, do some enamels. So this is the tricky part, just kind of under the eye. Very lightly. There we go. Looks good. Certainly good enough for government work. And then for the gun casings, we're going to come in with some intermediate blue, which is a very gray, blue-gray. Again, light. But you can see the difference. You see how different these colors. This is the armor highlight color, and this is the intermediate blue color. Very, very different. So just changing the highlight color can completely change how something is painted, even if it's painted using the same base color, like in this case with the black. Right. This thing's going to come together pretty quick because we're closing in on the end of the detailing. Just have some brass bits to do after this, and then sponging and washing, and it'll be done. So part of the virtue of doing a scheme like this is how efficient you can get, even with the edge highlighting, because it's not lose your mind levels of edge highlighting. It's really, let's just make sure we cover all our bases kind of style of edge highlighting. So, whoops, that's a little sloppy. But again, it's okay. All this stuff is going to get washed, touched, and textured, and I think the claw on the other side was done with the main armor color. So we'll go back and do that. I mixed up way too much of this highlight. So even with kind of a janky brush, if you just use the side of the brush, you can get really nice, crisp edge highlights. And we want the paint nice and thin so that we're not having to apply much pressure to get it to wick. But you can see, like, it's a pretty crisp highlight from a pretty... I mean, the brush is okay, but it's not great. But because it's a rounded tip, it'll leave that. And that's really, that's really it for the black. As far as those initial highlights go, I'm gonna just bust through this brass really quick with a base coat of Tinny Tin. Where it looks kind of coppery. This is going to matter less because when I do the scorching, this will almost certainly be completely covered with black ink. But I want to have... just want to make sure I cover my bases. These parts, on the other hand, will not be covered. And this is Volkite. It's not plasma, so I'm not doing some kind of crazy OSL on the coils. Volkite just doesn't play like that. So no OSL on this guy anywhere, actually. I'm not a huge OSL guy in general, but whoops. Yeah. A little rusty. Been a long couple of weeks. And now these vents on the top here, I may just leave them. Not sure I'm really gonna... they're so thin. I'm not sure I'm really gonna get a lot out of painting them. Nah. Maybe I'll hit them with some inks when I do the scorching. That could work. Before I get too crazy with the brass bronze here, I think I might just limit it. I didn't think the black was going to go so quickly, so I didn't really think this through before I got here, but I think that's fine. Like, really, I'm... oh, duh. The ammo feed. The shell casings. And I'm sure there's like some cloth or something in the middle holding the casings in the bandolier or whatever. Not getting down to that level of detail today. Okay. That's fine. It's definitely, the gun is definitely missing something. So I'm going to come back and begrudgingly paint these. I don't know if this is necessarily what it's missing, but it's definitely missing something. A lot of what it's missing is just definition and interest in the metallic parts. If you remember, the metallic parts are just airbrushed. Like, there's nothing going on those parts yet. All of the texturing and all the interest will be developed with oil washes, enamel washes. So at this point, it's just silver, which is boring. And a lot of painting this guy has just been like kind of hurry. Ooh, no. That's not what we want. And lick my finger and kind of wipe that off with that brush guy. There's a little bit left behind. See down here? Oh, that's not good though. Shit. So this time I'm going to get a paper towel wet and kind of get a big dab and rub. Yeah, this is getting a lot of sponging. So a little bit left behind, like you can see right there. That's not the end of the world. And hopefully that was it. Nope, up here got in the gray. Man. Come on, man. You go rolling through paint like that towards the end of my tutorial? Not cool. Not cool. I mean, better this model than a lot of other ones I've been working on recently. More precise paint jobs. But it happens sometimes. You just kind of clean it off. Not much else you can do. And I'm certainly not like, starting over or something. Or getting the airbrush back out and re-base coating and highlighting those areas, because it doesn't, and this is important, because it's not going to impact the final, excuse me. It's important to know what's still coming, what you still have to do. That way, when something like that happens, so when something like that happens, you can just say, oh, that's fine, it'll get covered up at a later stage, versus approaching it like, oh, I have to make sure that each part of the model is finished before I do the next step, kind of thing. Otherwise, you'd feel the need to kind of go back and fix the armor before moving on. But then you're going to fix the armor and you're going to cover up. Gosh, I almost did it again. When you fix the armor, after you fix the armor, you're just going to cover it up later anyway. So we can just save ourselves the time that we would have spent fixing the armor. You don't want to leave it totally messed up, but you certainly don't have to go back and spend time on that. And these are just, oh, I'm sorry, this is Brassy Brass from Vallejo Game Color. So tinny tin and then brassy brass. I'm not washing it. I'm not doing anything to it. I'm just getting that brass color. And then when I come back and oil wash and do all that, it'll get in the recesses. None of these pieces are really big enough, or they don't really warrant getting a really deep finish before we get to the washes. So now that we're at this stage, we can do a little bit of sponging, and that'll be pretty much the end of the painting. And then we can come in with the washes and such in the next tutorial segment. So it's good to kind of plan, if you're not mixing whole batches, it's good to plan on doing the sponging after doing the edge highlighting, so kind of get everything lined up, because I mixed a bunch of the edge highlight color, and this would all just kind of go to waste. Not a huge deal, it's a couple drops of paint, but in the interest of efficiency and just, not wasting materials, if you can come and do sponging without wasting any of the edge highlight color and remixing it, then that's a good thing. This is Vallejo model colored black gray. Now, this isn't a color that we've used on the armor yet. I don't want to use pure black. I already did that to chip the heraldic elements here. I want to use a black gray because it is gray. It is going to show up, but it's super, super dark. It's mostly just going to lend some texture and like a little bit of chipping, but it's not black. I want to stay away from pure black for the most part. I can come back later and hit it with some pure black at the end if I feel like I've overdone it in some areas. But you can see here as it's drying, it's drying a little satin compared to the sea gray underneath it, but it's not, the color wise, it's not standing out, right? It's really kind of blending. It stands out on the black a little bit, and that's perfect. We want that texture to show up on the black. And now I'm kind of concentrating in areas that would normally receive a lot of dings and dents and things like that in combat. So really focusing on the front part of the model, the armor guards, things of that nature. Wipe that trim off. A little bit on the front of the gun here. Definitely on the side of the weapon here. A little bit on the back here. And again, remember we spilled a little, so whoa. Be a little heavy with it back there. A little lighter back there. A couple more dabs. A little bit on this gun. A little bit on there. A little bit more on the heraldry here. Boom. And now I'm going to be a little bit more selective when it comes to the... Be a little bit more selective when it comes to the highlight color, because this is going to contrast a lot more. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tear a piece of this foam off, I'm going to tear off the part that got the black gray on it. I'm going to tear off a little bit smaller part, and then I'm going to use some tweezers to hold it. Make sure that I have a good texture on the end there. Good torn texture on the end. Pick up some of the highlight color. Oops. Dabbing it so I get most of the texture off, and I want to be in a position to where I'm getting just a very light, like that. Very light. That blood. Even this piece is too big. Okay, let's get that smaller, and let's get these smaller tweezers. So this is a very small, we're going to use a very small piece of foam. And these little needle nose tweezers here. There we go. Even there, I was covering too much surface area. I want a very, very small footprint with this. And again, it may seem like it may seem a little aggressive initially, but after we get the washes going, it'll tone all this down. You have to overcorrect initially with how bright everything is, so that when it gets toned down and it gets filtered with the washes, it still shows up. If this was too close, too subtle, then when we did the washes, it would just disappear. So we want to kind of overcorrect. And that's what we're doing now. We're focusing on the front part of the legs, focusing on the lower parts of the armor here. A little bit on the heraldic elements there. Just a touch. Just to kind of get it involved. Not enough to really change the landscape, but and a little bit here. And I said we weren't going to be doing much back here, but you can't just ignore it completely. Right? You can't have just like a totally weathered vehicle with like super clean guns. Like it just doesn't look right. That reminds me I need to go back and hit my Invader ATV guns. Because kind of the same thing, they're really sponge from here to, hell and gone. And but the guns I painted separately, so they're super clean. And somebody pointed it out that they're like, oh, these look really cool, but the guns look really clean compared to the rest of the vehicle. So easily mended. All right, a little bit of chipping, a little bit of brass, and we are ready. I mean, we're starting to develop that texture in the armor. Armor looks fierce, weapons look good. And the next segment, we'll come back and we'll start in on some oils and enamels and some pigment washes. We're really going to go to town on this thing and get it nice and greasy and grimy for the horsehairs. We're going to be doing a lot of the texturing using oil washes, enamel washes, a little bit of pigment work. So today we're really going to draw a lot of the character out of this model. Right now, like it looks good, but it's just kind of lacking some more characterful touches as far as just some grime and some grit. The metals are too clean. We just need to dirty this thing up and get some more character and definitions, especially into the metals. After this, and essentially, that'll finish off the model for the most part. There's just a little bit of scorching that'll need to be done. And then obviously pinning it to the base, or painting the base, pinning it to the base, and then little pigment work to integrate it into the base, which I'll do a segment on, when that gets done. Basing for this model is going to be pretty straightforward. It's a simple base construction series tutorial from, one of the first series on the Patreon, like over a year ago. But it's just some texture gel and some slate chips. I need to go around and put some fine sand on it as well. But it's just going to be a green, kind of lush green base. I thought it'd contrast really well with all the blacks and whites and reds in the army, and kind of harken back to Caliban a little bit. And it's just a base scheme that I absolutely love doing. So it's unique. You don't see a lot of green, kind of healthy, verdant basing in 40k armies. So for all those reasons, I decided to put them on a put them on a healthy green base. But today, we're not focusing on basing. Today, we're focusing on finishing up painting the model. So what I'm going to need today is like Artist White Spirit, some Q-tips. Those are going to be my main components. I'm going to need some of my oil washes. I'm going to be using my traditional kind of darker oil wash. I'm going to be using my more red oil wash as well on the metallics. And then I'm also going to be mixing up a little bit of black. I have a bunch of videos on making oil washes, so that part of this is just going to be really quick and straightforward. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I have a bunch of oil wash videos. So, wow, child-proof. Artist White Spirit in just a little salsa cup here. I don't need much of this. I rarely do a black wash, but for pin washing black armor, a mostly black wash is going to be the most effective. As you can imagine, this gets pretty saturated pretty quick. So just want to make sure I have a good consistency, good saturation on this. So Artist White Spirits, little bit of middle of the road oil paint, doesn't have to be super fancy, and a synthetic brush, and you are off to the races. You don't need a giant container of oil wash unless you're doing entire terrain boards, and even then, I can't tell you how many thousands of miniatures I've oil washed since I bought these tubes, but it's been like 7 years, and I paint a few hundred models a year. So not all of them get oil washed, of course. So, do the math. Thousands and thousands. Good value because these are like $7, and then the White Spirit is what I keep having to buy. But a big bottle of this, at least in the US, is like $18 and lasts me, I don't know, 6 months maybe. So for less than $40 a year. So now I'm adding in, this is a black and burnt umber mix. I'm adding a little bit of that in just to soften the black just a little bit. This is my go-to dark mix, but it's lighter than the black armor. I do not want to use just pure black. I'd have to soften it a little bit. Because pure black is just not really a natural color in this context. Like shading this, pure black is too much. So I'm going to get that little bit of that off the brush. And I'm actually going to come in with the work from the inside out. So I'm going to come in with this black and burnt umber mix, my go-to oil wash mixture. And now you may have noticed this is no varnish. I have not varnished this model. Typically, if you're going for like a clean pin wash on a model, you'd want to do gloss varnish before you do the oil wash. I need to stop dropping this model. I've opted to skip that. And the reason I did that is because I want these oils to stain. I want them to affect the paints underneath the oils. I want them to stick better, for lack of a better term. If you don't use gloss varnish, they're going to cover better. They're going to be more persistent. When you try to remove them, they're just going to settle in. And because I want this dreadnought to be grimy and weathered and old and all of those things, I want the armor to be subdued. I want it to be textural. I want the metallics to be textural. I want, you know, all these things, the grit and the grime that this oil wash is going to leave behind. Those are all assets to my paint scheme. Those aren't, obscuring hard work that I've already done. Those would be the point, right? Like I was just laying most of the work that I've done before this is just laying the foundation for this part with the oils and the enamels and the pigments. And this is what I've been waiting for. This is where I'll develop the character and get the things that typically you would use, acrylic paints for by doing washes and highlighting and stippling and sponging and doing all those techniques that, are common to just, everyday miniature painting. With this model and with this scheme, the acrylic work is really just kind of laying the foundation for the oil work and the enamel work that comes towards the end. So it's why these, this can look kind of flat. It can look kind of, it looks cool, but, you're like, okay, like that's cool, but could be better. And then hopefully after the oil and enamel work is done, you're like, oh, okay, that's what the point was. That's what he was going for. So hopefully that's the reaction anyway. Oh my gosh, I almost tipped that over. So you can already see those metallics starting to get worked down a little bit. Now I'm going to come in with this kind of black and go back over the armor. This is also going to make the armor more black than it was. I know, shocking. I am going to come back with a Q-tip and remove oils. But this is going to just filter everything down. This is going to make the armor more black. This is going to make the shadows kind of deeper. This is going to make, not necessarily, it's going to pinwise, it's going to define the black armored elements a lot better than they are up to this point. It's going to define the trim better. It's going to integrate the transfers. This is a one-stop shop for pin washing and filtering this model. And the part that I love about using oils to do this is it's really fast. So that's also a plus. And it just leaves behind this kind of gritty element when even after you remove it, that kind of grit and grime is persistent. So on this kind of weapon housing here, thigh plates, knee armor, shin armor especially, getting those crevices there. Get up here on the weapon. Get these bandoliers here. And remember, I didn't wash these. These are just getting defined by the oil wash here. All right. Kind of pick up some of the pooling. We want it to be heavy, but we don't necessarily want it to pool. Right. And I finally got a hair dryer instead of a heat gun. Thank you, Amazon. I think this was $8, maybe $12 from Revlon. So I'm going to use the hair dryer to dry this off, but I'm going to mute my mic. So just 30 seconds. Let me just Okay, so not even 30 seconds really. So what happens when I use the hair dryer is the white spirit evaporates and it leaves the oils behind. This is a very expedited version of this, but I don't want this to like completely dry before I try to wipe it off. The longer it sits there, the more it's going to dig in. So I don't want this to be 100% dry. But I do want it dry enough to where I'm not going to just wipe everything off when I come through with the damp Q-tip, right? So I'm just going to dip this Q-tip in Artist White Spirits, same thing that I used as the basis for the oil wash. And this is going to take the oils just right off the surface, so you can see on the end of the Q-tip there. And I'm just going to come through and I'm going to focus on the armor plates. I'm not going to focus so much on the metallics. And you see now I'm exposing some of that chipping again. It's not quite as subdued as, you know, like it is on the back or on the top. You can see how matte this is. It's a nice look, but you see how much more defined everything is throughout here than it was before the oil wash, right? And again, I don't want to just undo all the work we just did, but I do want to take some of this off. And once we come back in matte varnish, that'll also bring everything together. But you can see how much better defined the trim is, the rivets, all that is toned down. So far, so good. A little bit on top here, a little bit on the gun casing. Definitely hit that shield again. See, the armor's a little blacker. The recesses kind of next to all the trim and everything, super well defined. You can see the trim is a little, like the rivets and everything, like everything's just a little tighter. Everything, the metallics look better, more worn. Everything just looks better, you know? So that's why we do what we do. Now I'm going to take this kind of red. This is raw umber and burnt sienna for the most part mix here. Stir everything up. This is a very red brown. So this is going to be more of like a rusty feel to this. Wow, that is really, I need to add some white spirit to that because that is a little too strong. Okay. And for this, we're just going to kind of come through, focus a little around some of the joints. Wow, that is still really, really pasty. I'm going to put a lot more white spirit in there. So like bottom down here and some of the, you know, maybe the weapon mount there, maybe around the joints down here. I don't want to go too crazy. I don't want it to look decrepit, but I do want an element of this with the Contemptor Cortus, right? I do want a hint of decrepitude and those kind of field repairs, because that's the fluff on the Contemptor Cortus. Is that they're basically Contemptors, but they've been kind of field repaired as times got more and more dire during the early parts of the heresy. I think I got that right. And so I want to show just a little bit of that questionable repair, overdue repairs kind of feel. I'm going to get some up in there. In the feet. So not like a rusty machine, but definitely could use a little love from the next servitor it comes across, right? That's looking good. Hair dryer time again. 1 second. Dry for the most part. Not 100%, but I want to get the rust off the armor panels in particular. And I want that hanging out on the armor panels. Again, this is not a Death Guard Dreadnought. This is not a rust bucket, but it does need some love and attention. So, a little bit's fine, and that's going to also contrast really nicely with the basing, with all the greens in the basing. It's really going to make a nice contrast with these little bit of warmth, a little bit of red browns. Just kind of in the recesses of this model. Not, again, it's not real strong. There we go. Now we're getting there. And sometimes when you're wiping it off, you can go back around the claw. Not a lot got removed the first time, but and I just broke one of the ends of the claw. Darn it! I should have been more careful. Oh well, that works. It fits. Fits lore wise. I mean, a little bit of battle damage never hurt anybody. So, sometimes if it's being too stubborn, the first time you go over it, you're just kind of reactivating it, and then you can go back a second time with another damp Q-tip and take off a little bit more, because like I said, I don't want this to be looking like a rust bucket. I just want it to have a little bit more. You can see, especially in here, this is looking really good. That little bit of rust and red down there. The legs are looking good. The claws looking a little rusty, but that's fine. But you can still see like the shiny silver. So it's not left to rot, right? Like there's still a level of respect there. They still value it. It's not just, oh well, whatever happens, they just haven't seen Tech Priest in a while. So kind of cobbled together with parts. So I like it. I dig it. I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to grab some enamels. Track wash being one of them. Streaking grime being another. Rust streaks. Maybe a little gray, a little engine grime. And for this, I'm going to grab a different. There we go. Different synthetic brush that I was using with the oils. And this is more kind of chunky, like true dark brown. This is some truly grimy shit here. So really getting in the recesses. Little bit track wash. Ooh, hey now. This is why I put all the caps back on, because I just waving these things around like a crazy person. This is going to be a little bit more, just kind of that dark brown. This is a little redder, a little lighter. And again, this is just variation, little change, little different consistency, little different look than the streaking grime. This I'm gonna focus kind of in the lower parts of the joints, the inside of the feet here a little bit. Kind of the lower parts of the joints there. Maybe a little bit in here. And this is just to grime. This is just to grime this thing up, right? Because we're going to come back and remove a lot of this too, but this is also very persistent. So just kind of little touches here or there on the actual armor itself, just to give a little bit of variation, a little bit of color variation. Filter it a little bit. Again, not using rust, but even this dark brown will really have an effect. So a little bit on the sides here. And it just kind of warms up the shadows. I mean, this has this can have a pretty profound effect on the model. So just have to wait and see. And then a little bit of the gray just to kind of chill things out. This is engine grime, and this is a grayish, little bit of gray color. So this will come back. This has come back just kind of up here a little bit. So this is really just for the metallic areas. And kind of chill some of that out. Just on some of the pistons here. Just kind of get kind of grimy deposits on the pistons. Get that out of there. A little bit around the exhaust here. Kind of focusing in a little bit different areas than we have so far, but a lot of this is going over the same, kind of treading the same waters, right? All right. And really, before this sets, I'm going to come back with that Q-tip, come back with that white spirit. Because I don't want this to just stain everything, right? I just want it to be a contributor. I don't want it to be the whole show. So coming down the carapace here, I want to leave it in the recesses, but you can see just how just a little bit of grime, a little bit of grit, a little bit of color. It can really make an enormous difference in the final look of the model. Concentrate on the higher part there, leave the lower part kind of grimier and in shadow. Back here on the pistons, just a little touch. You want to leave most of that grime behind. Same on these joints here. Same on the feet. Back here. And if I'm pulling down, that's going to leave the wash in the recesses there. I'm excited. This is turning out pretty much exactly how I'd hoped. Where it's just making this thing like rough around the edges, right? Just giving it that lived in look. All right. And so I think I'm going to leave it there before I just pull too much of this wash. But you see like how much more character we have in these metallics here, how flat those were before, the feet, the armor, the chains, all this stuff under here. Oh, that's a little too grimy. Hang on. Get some of that. A little much. Got a little over enthusiastic in there. Look at that under there. That's looking really good. Nobody's going to turn this over in looking at really, but I'll know. And it just all contributes. You're just building. It all contributes to the final product. But you can see how much more developed those metallics are in there, how much more developed the metallics are in here. And when we varnish this and I get some final pictures, you're really going to see it. Right now, the stuff is still wet, stuff is still drying. There's still little fuzzies all over it. So it's going to be, I'm not going to use a hairdryer. I'm going to let this dry au natural. But you'll be able to really see how much those metallics were developed in, a relatively short period of time. And I'll do some pigment work when I come back and do the basing. If I feel like I want to leave some more kind of dirt deposits or whatever with pigments instead of these washes, I can always come back and do that later. I don't have to do it right now. I know I'll be doing it around the feet. I don't know if it's necessary on the rest of the model, given how much you've been able to develop it. And I don't want, I don't want rust deposits. I just want grime and grease and grit. And I think we've accomplished that. I think this looks more complete as a model than it did before. Once we varnish it, it'll really kind of bring everything together, and then do the scorching, get it on the base, and I think it's going to look really cool. So thank you for your support. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And I'm going to get the base worked up off camera, and when we come back next time, I'll show you how to pin the model to the base and then work pigments to integrate it into the base, do some tufts, things like that. So I'm going to be putting the finishing touches on the Dark Angels Legion Contemptor Cortus Dreadnought for Horus Heresy, and that means finishing up the basing, integrating the model into the base using some pigments. So the base was sculpted, or I guess made, using the simple base construction method from one of my first tutorials, and it was painted the exact same process as the travel size display board tutorial series. Just a very green, healthy looking base, which is different for 40K and is something that I thought would work really well with the black and white and red of Heresy Dark Angels. It would also kind of harken back to Caliban a little bit. So not that they're set on Caliban necessarily, but it's a little homage. Mostly, I just thought it would work really well for the paint scheme, and I think it'll work really well for Mechanicum scheme that I'm thinking of as well. So hence the color choices that I've made. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some tufts to the base and a little bit of pigment to just integrate the model fully into the base. So for tufts, I'm going to use 3 different colors of healthy grain tufts. You want to use some variation. If you're going to be using a few different tufts, if you're going to be covering, a decent amount of area, you want to use a few different colors because it just gives a more natural look, more natural variation. Unless you're going and looking at a soccer field or something, it's not all going to be, unless it's a lawn, right? It's not all going to be the same color generally in nature. You're going to have plants of different colors, different shades. So that's why I'm using these 3 different colors. I have mini nature tufts, which are my favorite because they're irregularly shaped. they're not just circular. So I have these tufts. I don't know where these are from. These might be like RV Painter or something. And you can see that these are all circular. So what they do is they put dots of glue and then they put the static grass and they're circular. What Mini Nature does is they kind of spread the glue around in various thicknesses and then they do the tufts, the grass rather. And you end up with these really irregular sizes and irregular shapes to the tufts. These are also Mini Nature. So these are my favorite by far. I have a whole box full of them. So what we're going to do is get an extra base here and put some super glue on it. And then I'm going to get one of my most used hobby tools, I think, are these little tweezers, these little hook nose tweezers. And I'll grab, I don't want to put a ton of these on here, but I want to put more than I would on like my desert basing or something. So I put one there. And this, we're just trying to be, random. I'm not trying to, if there's an area that I think lacks texture or that lacks definition, like here's kind of this weird divot back here, I'll just cover that with a tuft. Just like this foot is hanging out above the ground layer, which is fine. It looks like he's stepping up a little bit, but I'm still going to put a tuft there just to kind of close that gap. So you see these are very, very, very green. So a little tuft under the foot there. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put this tuft right next to the one that we already placed. A little bit of glue right next to it there. So it just kind of gives it a little bit more natural. Oops. Look, and because the texture paste is still a little soft, I am putting some pressure on these to kind of get it to really adhere and really kind of dig in there a little bit. So a little bit of glue, park this right next to there, and then I just want to grab just a little one to put over here next to some rocks. And this is real quick. I mean, this is not, I try not to overthink this and try to just kind of go with it. Now we have some of those darker ones, and then the lighter ones are really going to kind of bridge that gap between the lightness of the base and lightness. I'm not quite sure that's a word, but you know what I mean. How pale and light the base is and how dark those tufts are. So kind of put one back there. Looks like I need a little bit more glue. This is a big old tuft. We're going to put that right under the foot there, I think. A little smaller. Yep. Not exactly a little smaller, but this will work. I'll put this back here. I said I didn't want to put too many tufts on there, but I kind of am putting a bunch of tufts. And so that little area there has all three colors of tuft. And that's looking a little more natural. I want to try, I don't necessarily want to pair all of them up with different colored tufts, but I don't really want just kind of one straggling off on its own really either. So I think that looks pretty good. I think that's a good distribution. I really like this back here. Of course, the part that I like is in the back. But I think overall that looks good. It certainly looks kind of bushy and healthy. And that's what we were going for. On other bases or on larger bases, you could do more like bushes, different kinds of vegetation, things like that. So there's a lot of different possibilities for I think Ancient Earth is the one that I'm looking for. Yeah. Not this one. Nope. Okay. All right. Little pigment work. Never hurt anybody. And the pigments are what's really going to integrate these into the base. And what I mean by that, so we're going to grab some Secret Weapon Green Earth, which is this kind of greenish brown color, and that will break up just the solid green that we have going on the base. And then the Ancient Earth is a more pale green, and that's really, really close, you can see, to the green that we already have down there. So this is just a absolutely trashed brush. Just dip it a little bit. Make sure to get some on the feet, some around the feet. Maybe get some around the rocks here to add a little bit more kind of color to the rocks. Same thing back here. Make sure you get some on the feet. Now, I don't want to come up the shins on these with these pigments. Like I don't want to go super crazy with these, but I do want to get some variation. Otherwise, this base is just going to look green, 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 and it'll be a little boring, despite the different textures and the rocks and the tufts. If it was just green on green on green on green, there really wouldn't be much to look at. Now I'm going to dip into this Ancient Earth. Get some of that on there. This I'm going to be a little bit more generous on the feet. And this kind of lends kind of more of an alien look because, if this is just grass or whatever, it's not necessarily going to be it's not going to be like dusty. This kind of greenish dust, I think, gives it a little bit more alien look, a little bit more complete look to the model. So a little bit of discoloration on the shins here. Not much. Again, I don't want to go crazy on this. And I'm just applying these dry so that I can kind of control where they're going. Now you can see this is looking more at home on this base, right? I think that's going to be good. And then I'm going to grab which of course is in my other okay. Here it is. Always synthetic brushes with the pigment fixer. Always, always, always. And always using it on a towel or something, because this stuff gets everywhere and it is awful and it will never come out of anything. So I use Soilworks, Soilworks Terrain Fixer from Scale 75. It is the best I've ever used by far. It just doesn't change the color of the pigment. And you want to make sure that you're done. Like I'm done varnishing. I'm done with everything. This is the last thing that I'm doing on this model is pigment fixer, because if you varnish pigments, they'll just disappear. I don't know why, but they will literally just like evaporate and disappear off the base. I don't know why. I don't ask those kinds of questions. So pigment fixer is a must. You can use, isopropyl. You can use, I don't know, realistic water. There's some other ways to do pigments, but for me, in this application, pigment fixer is the way to go. And this is going to make sure that it doesn't come off while I'm gaming. It doesn't come off during transport. Everything, this is going to lock in those pigments. And I'm going to let that dry. Put this back. Pigments back. All right, good with that. I'm going to fold this up carefully so I don't spill. Make sure the pigments are put away. And then I'm going to let that dry normally, but I'm actually going to turn my mic off. I'm going to use I actually got a hairdryer now. So give me a minute. Okay, so not 100% dry, but you can see that color coming back, that texture coming back. You can see it on the lower part of the leg here. It's still drying back here, but down here with the different browns and the grains. This is a really efficient way to get some variation on your basing scheme without going over and again with paints and washes and all this stuff. Using pigments at the end from where we were, 10 minutes ago, not even 15 minutes ago, to where it is now is super, super simple. And you can do that across, a ton of models at a time. So I'm going to actually put it down another one of these so I don't get black rings on the paper, but just because it's a film. So I use Thamar Black from P3 for my base rims. It's a little bit more satin than like Vallejo Model Color Black is really matte. But this Thamar Black is satin, and I just really like it. It's what I've used for base rims for years. Always with a black base rim. I never do colored base rims. That just doesn't look right to me. So I view it as kind of a frame for the picture, and it lets the model kind of stand on its own on the battlefield or on a display board or something. It really lets the models stand out, but in like a classy way. Sometimes colored base rims can just blend in maybe a little too much, or what's I think worse is they can really stand out too much. If you go for a really bold color on the base rim, it can end up taking away from the model, because any color that you add unconsciously is going to be part of the color scheme of the army. So We just want to be mindful of that. And this, I'm just going around as it dries, do a second coat. Okay. And there we have it. Done and done. Dark Angel's Contemptor Cortus Dreadnought. Love the basing. I think it worked perfectly. I really like how many tufts there are. I'm just really happy with this model. Really, really happy. This is a nice, this sets the tone for the army really well. Super happy with this. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial series. Hope you learned some things. And if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments, or leave a comment below video so that everybody can see the answer. And, you know, look forward to the next series. I mean, I think we covered some pretty great ground with this one, with the heraldry and some weathering using the oils, pigments, some different enamel washes. And this is a really efficient model. And this model is less than 10 hours, which for a complex model like this is really good. I really enjoyed doing the build model for this video, or the build video for this model. That was really cool too. So some good memories in this one. And looking forward to, you know, doing some other pieces for this army. I think when it all comes together, I think it's going to be a pretty striking force. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon for the next series.